Welcome to Chasing Dragonflies. Join us as we explore the glorious chaos of chasing life, only to discover the God of the universe is chasing us. I'm your host, Jane Foster, triplet mom and fellow sojourner in the land of motherhood. Hi friends, you're in for a treat today. I've got my friend Tiffani Campbell with me, and it's just a beautiful story to share. There are times when it's just important to share details of our lives to bless others, and I know that this story will make you laugh, it'll make you smile, might make you cry, but it will definitely make you think, and so I just appreciate her being here with me today. Tiffani, tell us who you are and where you came from.
I am Tiffani Campbell, and I came from a lot of places. I was a military brat, but I spent most of my years in South Atlanta, like south of Atlanta, and then we moved to Texas probably six or 7 years ago.
Still a Bulldog fan.
Absolutely. Go Dogs.
A little heartbroken right now, but
I don't talk about it. I had to spend like a full week with like not even looking at my Bulldog attire. I was like, I'm so angry right now.
Still a little bitter.
Yes. Like, oh.
Yes.
But they did well this year.
Well.
Yeah. It was supposed to be a rebuilding year, but considering it was a rebuilding year and they got as far as they did, I think that they did really well.
Nothing to be ashamed of there.
No, not at all.
Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to be known for? And I like this question because it's different from asking about your resume. You know, we can list, I have this degree, this is my grade point average, this is where I work, all that kind of stuff. But it's not the same question as what you want to be known for. I was a physical therapist for 20 years, but what I want to be known for is that I'm good at celebrating. We have a tradition in our family. I don't know if you remember the 80s song, I'm Older Than You. It's Rock the Casbah. And it's no, I've lost her. It's really kind of Steve, who is helping record. Steve's like, I know that song. It's kind of a nonsense song. Yes. The Clash, yes, but it's got a great catchy beat. And so when one of the kids does something that's special, maybe it's, hey, I made the team, I did good on this test, I got this special recognition at school, then we rock the Casbah. And I turn this obnoxious song on, and we dance around the room. And at this point, since I have teenagers, I think only the dogs are really excited about that nonsense. But I want to be known for being good at celebrating. What do you want to be known for?
That's a question. Let's see. I don't know. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is just I want to be known as an honest person. Mm-hmm. I want to be known as somebody that that always looked for the truth, I guess, and tried to help guide people by the truth,
that fits you.
Yeah, it does. Okay, good. Because I was like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
you're a truth seeker.
Yes, I am absolutely a truth seeker. Yes. Yes, that's true. Mm-hmm.
So married lady, mother of two.
Yes.
How old are your girls now?
12 and 6.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So if you have a kiddo that is at least age 2, moms, you know that those first 2 years of life, there's a whole lot of pediatric appointments, and they're at these specific intervals and all of these checkups, and you fill out a big checklist of what your kid is doing and not doing, and they're looking at gross motor skills and fine motor skills and social skills, and the pediatrician measures weight and length, which eventually becomes height, and ask a whole lot of questions about the do's and don'ts of those stages. And I remember, because my kids were preemies, they were a couple of months premature, that we were always behind. We never could check all the boxes. It was the first couple of years of life that we were playing catch up, and it eventually got there. Mm-hmm. But it felt like those questionnaires were always a bit of a, here's a bad report card, from my crew, because it was the list of this is what they should be doing at the stage, but this is what they actually are doing. What was that like for you with each of your girls at that stage?
So with my oldest, I never even thought about it. I apparently had a not I don't want to say not normal, but she never got sick, always on par with everything where she needed to be. We just lived our life,
No concerns.
No concerns at all. I mean, the well checks were the only time we went to the doctor. And so with her, I mean, when the second one came along, I didn't expect anything different. Mm-hmm. And it was different. It was a little different. Do you want me to tell you? Get into it right now?
Yeah, tell me when it got different.
So the thing about my youngest was when we moved to Texas, we didn't know anybody here, and it happened to be the September 2019. And she was
before COVID.
Right before COVID. She was 4 months old. And so my mom actually came to Texas with us to help out because I am very fortunate. I get to work from home. But I needed somebody to watch the baby because, I had to work. I had to be in meetings. And so 2020, COVID happened. We were going to put her in daycare. But obviously because of COVID, I was like, Mom, I'm just going to leave her here, for you to watch her a little bit longer. And then when she went to her, every appointment was fine. They didn't say anything was wrong. And then at her 18-month appointment, we were doing the checklist.
Right.
We did the check, and I answered them honestly. I didn't think anything of it. But I do remember some of the questions were, does she turn her head when you call her name? Mm-hmm. I was like, nope, she doesn't do that. Does she point to things? No. Is she, saying, like, repeating words or something to that? And I was like, no, she's not, whatever. She's 18 months. Is she really supposed to be doing all this? I don't remember because it
had been a few years.
6 years in between both of my girls. So I went into the doctor came in and we were, she checked her. Everything was good, always with height, weight. Everything was fine. She was eating. And then I just remember, and it's like I can still hear it echoing in my head, huh. And I was like, what? And then she went into, so she's not turning her head whenever you call her name, kind of went down the checklist. And I was like, no. And she asked me a few more questions. And I just remember going, I'm sorry, are you trying to tell me that you think that my child is autistic? And she was like, well, she's still kind of young. And this is apparently a normal response from pediatric doctors. We don't diagnose, and so we don't want to say too much type of,
Don't want to put a label on anybody too soon, just some red flags here.
Well, I think that because they don't specialize in that particular, they don't really want to say yay or nay because they can't diagnose it. I mean, well, I guess they can, but they diagnose it off of other people, I can't remember, like a therapist report or another doctor's report.
More testing.
Yes, exactly. And so I don't think that she really, and she was still so young, 18 months. And I left that appointment with a brochure. That's all she gave me. She was like, well, we can wait and see. Here's a brochure if you want to look into it. And sent me on my merry way. And I was like, what?
What did you do next?
Well, the first thing I did was I remember shaking and like, how did I not see this? What did I do wrong? Like immediately into this like panic mode almost. And I went home and I remember calling Jeff and my husband and I was like, the doctor thinks that she might be autistic. And he's like, oh my gosh, no, she's not. And then he goes, well, I do have a coworker that has a son the same age as Emmy, and they constantly talk about how much he's talking, and Emmy wasn't. And so I was like, well, she's also not around a lot of kids, and she is at home. Maybe it's because we haven't socialized her because of COVID.
Just different environment.
everything was going through my head. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And so, and then I had to like take a step back. Let's figure out what this even means. What is autism? I have no idea what autism is. I don't know. I didn't know that a kid was supposed to turn their head whenever you called their name. And so I did what I do because I am an analyst. I researched. I did a lot of research. I called a lot of places. That brochure did nothing for me, by the way. It had no information.
It was a small introduction.
It was, I think it was like an ECI, one of like the government ran like early not meeting your milestones type of program where like they'll send in a physical therapist if they're not meeting like a physical milestone. And they did provide a speech therapist for us. We did get a speech therapist. And I called a ABA center, which is the therapy for autism, and I was bawling my eyes out. I was like, when can I get her in to get tested? And they're like, well, we don't do that here. And I'm like, what? Who do I need to go to? Who do I need to talk to? And so I kind of was like, who do I know that knows anything about autism? Like, who can I learn from? Because I'm calling all of these places, and these places that are supposed to know don't know where to begin. Like, they know what to do after the diagnosis, but they don't know what to do before.
You need a starting point.
Yes. And is she even autistic, or is this just she's just a late bloomer type of situation? And so I remembered Jenny McCarthy, I think that's her name. She was like an actress that was very vocal about her son having autism. And I was like, that's the only person I know.
That you could think of.
That I could think. So I Googled it, and she, I kind of like researched, what she did. What are some of the things that she said? What are some of the characteristics that her son had? And that led us into the like gluten-free, dairy-free diet. And then that part of it kind of got in my mind putting some puzzle pieces together on your gut health and in the brain and the inflammation from your gut. And like I was like, okay, well, let me go this route. Like we're still going to get her diagnosed, we're still going to go therapy, but I feel like there's multiple things that we can do here instead of just sitting around and waiting for an appointment to get her diagnosed. I don't want to just wait.
Different ways to attack this.
Yeah, because I guess I just kind of looked at it as like, if she had strep throat, I wouldn't wait to get her antibiotics, right? I would want to try to find something to help her out as soon as possible. I would also, like, while we're waiting for I would get her a cold, lollipop or something. You know what I mean? Just something to help her.
Start an intervention somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't like waiting. I'm a very controlling person in that sense. Like, I could control this whole situation myself. And so we immediately took her off of dairy and gluten. I took her to a holistic doctor who ran a whole bunch of tests on her to make sure that she didn't have food allergies or anything else going on. I still at that point hadn't found a doctor though to diagnose her, because you have to take them to a I can't remember what they're called. It's been so many years. But I reached out to a friend of mine from high school. She lives in Austin. And I was like, hey, can you give me any guidance on this? And she said, well, it took her years to get her daughter diagnosed. She said, because when it comes to girls and autism, they tend to go less diagnosed because they don't present the way that boys do.
Symptoms are a little different.
So a lot of research that was done is based off of boys, not so much of the girls. And so she gave me a doctor that was actually in Grapevine. And she was like, he specialized in girls specifically for autism. And so we we called. I heard horror stories like 8 months to get a diagnosis, but we were very fortunate. I mean, within 2 weeks, we had the diagnosis.
Wow.
2 weeks, yeah. So, and I don't know if it was because he was like 18 months. Let's look at this early, because early intervention is so important.
Makes a big difference.
And then she had actually started her speech therapy before we even got the diagnosis. And then I started researching because he wanted us to put her in ABA. He diagnosed her at autism level 2. So level 1 is mild, level 3 is severe.
So she was a moderate.
She was moderate, yeah. And he was like, I think that she'll thrive probably after like a year or two in therapy. So
diagnosed by, would you say, about 20 months before 2? She's diagnosed?
19 months.
19 months. Fast.
Yes. Well, and the thing is that a lot of the doctors, I remember calling for a referral at the pediatrician, and the one was like, wow, you're actually going to get her tested? I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Like, you guys told me that you think that she might be. I'm not just going to sit around. She was like, yeah, well, a lot of parents are just like, oh, we'll just wait and see. And I was like, every bit of research that I've done says that early intervention is important. And she's like, yeah, but a lot of people just are like, oh, well, just because they don't want to admit. It's like such a taboo thing if you think of autism, because you don't know about it. You're like, oh, no, this couldn't possibly happen. But autism is not taboo,
Right.
I didn't know that. I thought it was taboo too. I was crying. I mean, I literally probably laid in bed like 2 weeks. I couldn't be in the same room as her because not because I didn't want to be near her, but because I was like, oh, she did that. Is that autism? Oh, she did that,
Just the constant analysis.
It was a hard time. It was a really hard time.
I think one of the things that I admire most about you, because it's been a few years since you told me this story initially, is partly what you just said. I think that a lot of times when someone confronts us about something about our child that doesn't measure up, and maybe it's the pediatrician, or maybe it's the school principal, or it's a counselor, or it's a teacher, whatever it is, your kid needs to do better in this area. Your kid is behind. Your kid is not performing at whatever we would call normal. I think it's easy to respond either with denial. Let me just pretend like you didn't say that and maybe it'll go away, because that feels better than having to deal with whatever that issue is. Or it's easy to just kill the messenger, that we want to demonize the person that told us this and just say, they were wrong, they were crazy, they were mean, they were overly critical or judgmental. And I think what I admire so much about you is that you took the information, even not understanding what all of it meant, or knowing very little about autism, and you didn't do any of that. You just decided, let me find out more, and whether she has this diagnosis or not, let's start attacking different parts of what may help her function better. If she's behind on speech, let's start speech therapy. To me, it's amazing you started that before she even had a diagnosis, just knowing, okay, this is an area she needs help in, whether she's autistic or not.
Yeah, and within 2 weeks of taking her off of milk and dairy, dairy and gluten, she started talking. And so I think that there was some kind of maybe sensitivity
for her.
Yeah, and because if you think about it, she was a breastfed baby for a year, and then she went to milk. And so because I went back and I was looking at, your mind just runs wild at that. So I went back and I was like looking at her as a baby, and I was like, she was very interactive. She laughed, and she would say mama, dada, and then it stopped. And I'm like, at what point did that stop? And we introduced milk to her because that's what you're supposed to do after, and so I think that I think that myself, like I've dealt with, like if I eat certain foods, I have such hard brain fog. I get really, like there are certain foods that I will not touch because I get brain fog. And so I'm like, maybe like she's got brain
Sure.
fog in her brain. And, one of the things that I researched was that there are 3 stages of brain development. And if you have the first stage of brain development and you've got brain fog, your brain isn't really developing, right? And so
It hits pause.
yeah, it does. And so, and then also let's get her a little bit more help, like some of the things that maybe she was behind on. And so to me, because I analyze everything and like the puzzle pieces just kind of started coming together. I was reading a research paper on the best type of therapy. And there was, so they have like ABA therapy, which I've heard horror stories about. I mean, the speech therapist was telling me, don't do it. Don't do it. And I was like, okay, well then what do I do instead? I don't know, but don't do that. That's not helpful.
The don't doesn't help.
That's not, you can't tell me why. Like you tell me, 20 years ago, they were forcing kids to like turn their heads instead of trying to entice them to turn their heads. But you're not telling me what to do in the meantime. I can't just let her not be in therapy because I'm scared of something. And so that's whenever I started researching, okay, what's the best therapy? And I found this this paper on the Early Start Denver model. It's a type of ABA, but more like a Montessori, it's like child-led instead of therapist-led. And it was specifically for kids in that first stage of age development between 1 and 3. And I was like, perfect. Like, and the rate of IQ, because that was one thing I was like, okay, I want to make sure that I help her as much as possible because I want her to be able to tell me when she's hungry, her stomach hurt. I mean, during the time she couldn't talk, she had RSV and she would just scream. And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with you. What hurts? Does your stomach hurt? Can you not breathe? Is your nose annoying you? Are you hungry? I have no idea. I just want my child to talk to me, And so that was one of the biggest things for me was not just like orange or blue or whatever. I want conversation,
Right.
So that was the biggest driver for me was I just want to know what's going on with you because if you're hurting or something, I don't like the non-conversation. And so that particular therapy had like really high results in the IQ and from their participants, I guess, during the research, whatever they did. So,
So you start that therapy.
yes,
What was the outcome for her?
Well, I had to find a place for that therapy because I wanted to find an ABA program that actually allowed that therapy because that's not the leading, I guess, model that they use.
Maybe alternative method is what you discovered?
Yeah. So I was able to find one and I loved it. And I was very grateful that it was 5 minutes away from the house and I could just take her. And they were ABA has come a long way, and I really appreciate how much the therapists love your kids and how much they want to see them succeed. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. What was the outcome that she had from these therapies?
So she did 16 months of ABA before she graduated, and they were like, hey, Emmy's graduating. We need to start, exiting. And I was like, oh, no, she could stay a little bit longer. Because she was doing so well. But she was doing so well, she actually started doing the therapy programs for the other kids. Like
she started tutoring other children.
She started being the therapist for the other students. So she would be like, she would do the like and like have like the kid repeat it to her. So anyway, so I was like, okay, fine, we'll get her into a daycare, but I was terrified of putting her in a daycare because it's not as regimented. It's not one-on-one. Like, what's going to happen here? Is she going to regress? But so 16 months of that. And then we went back for the 2-year. So after they're diagnosed, you wait 2 years and have, I guess, a re-eval. And she was no longer on the spectrum.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. It was amazing. And the therapist at her ABA center had told me that that's only the second child that she had ever seen come off of the spectrum. So,
if you meet this child in the wild, you would never in a million years believe that she ever had that diagnosis.
No,
she is so incredibly interactive.
Social.
Yes,
no,
it's shocking.
It's funny because both of our kids play volleyball together, and the coach came up to me this Saturday and was like, me and my youngest, me and her, we have a connection. Every time I meet her, she just wants to give me the biggest hug. And I was like, I am so glad that you feel so special and that you have that connection with her. But I just want to she's like that with everybody.
It's not you.
And it terrifies me. Yeah. I'm like, stranger danger.
Yes. Now, I'm wondering at this point what small country that this child will run one of these days.
I mean, sometimes she says stuff and it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you just made a very valid point. But you are 6 years old, and I am still the parent.
You're not the boss of me.
You're not the boss of me.
The 6-year-old
yes,
is not the boss of you.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and she's doing great. I mean, she's top in her class with reading and math, and I'm just really proud of her progress. That and I really think that everything combined, getting her diet under control, and then also having the therapy, the one-on-one, I really think that helped her thrive.
Was huge for her.
Yeah.
So throughout this journey, I'm sure there were highs and lows with it.
Yes.
What was that like walking through this with Jeff, with your marriage? Because you can have two really wonderfully committed parents with two very different ideas on what's next. Did you always agree, or did you have different thoughts on how to help her?
So my husband is amazing, and he's like, whatever you want. He's just kind of like, you take the reins, because he knows how I am. He knows that I'm very, well, the research says this and this says, and he was just like, okay, let's go to the appointment. Okay, let's do this. Okay, you know what I mean? So he was just very like, I trust you.
Support the path you're on.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And he knows that I'm not just off the whim, I'm making educated decisions based off of my research. And when the data is available and it's good data, then I feel comfortable in my decisions. And so he feels comfortable with me because I don't make decisions very often. I want him to make the decisions, but with this I was very firm. And so he was like, okay. And we were fine. I mean, we didn't have fights about it. We didn't have where he felt I was overstepping or I felt he was there was no problems at all in that sense. No.
Just move in the same direction.
Yeah, and one of the things that we really leaned on was it was just kind of God wanted us here, because if we would have been in Georgia, where we lived in Georgia, they don't have resources. We would have had to drive 2 hours above Atlanta to get to an ABA center, because they just didn't have it in our area. And we were able to find a place 5 minutes away from the house. We were able to find a doctor that a friend of mine from high school knew that was an hour up the road. And it was just God's plan,
I think it's fascinating how you can look back and you don't see it at the time.
Yes.
Even the move from Georgia to Texas, and you're just following the next career path and don't realize the ramifications that has for other parts of your life. And Emmy's story, not even knowing the challenges that were coming at that point. Do you feel like the Holy Spirit had a role in guiding you in figuring out next steps and research and therapies for her and opening some of those doors?
So I didn't until you and I were talking the other day, and you pointed it out. And I went home and I was thinking about it, and I was like, oh, It really was. It really was like a calming, you know what I mean? Like, this is what we're doing. I just, very few, like I said, very few things in my life I feel easily, like, for me to make a decision. It's very difficult for me to make decisions. I don't know why. I overthink everything.
You analyze both sides of everything.
Yes, and I'm like, well, you know, pros and cons here, pros and cons here. But with her, with this, I was very, this is what we're doing. And I think that he had a hand in that.
We were talking about, we went to lunch last week because we're friends and we're catching up, and we're talking about hearing God and having him guide us. And you were saying, I struggle with that, and I think we all struggle with that. And I said, the context of this was, I can't believe that you experienced what you did with Emmy and that whole process without the leading of the Holy Spirit in that. And I think what's interesting is you describing the peace and decision making, just knowing the what's next, and that's not common for you typically on a normal Tuesday. And knowing you, I'd say yes, because I hear you arguing both sides of things a lot when we visit.
Yes.
But that's when I know the Holy Spirit shows up in my life, because there's a peace that I can't fabricate. You know, there's a peace in just a knowing of things that I can't earn, I can't work for, I can't do a checklist for. That peace is a gift. And when that peace shows up, I know to listen and pay attention, because it's different than anything I can create on my own. So I think it's interesting that that's how you describe the next step. Figuring out the next step is just a piece that is maybe not typical in average decision making and things that we analyze and try and do our best with. In that, I'm writing a book about my story, and I read a chapter called Chasing Growth, and it parallels a lot of things you're talking about today, because having kids that are preemies, having kids that are behind, that are delayed, and all of those checkups, and you're not being able to check the boxes. I can remember it was probably a 15-month-old checkup, and the pediatrician getting alarmed with one of my sons, where there's a place in development where if you're holding your infant upright, they'll bear some weight through their legs, even though they can't stand yet, and then that erodes and goes away, and then it comes back as they're preparing to eventually be able to pull to stand. And that's a normal ebb and flow with development. And he was at that place where it should have returned, and it had not yet. And so it was all the red flags about, oh, you've got to work on this with him. And she knew I was a physical therapist. She knew I was already working on things with him at home. But it was the kind of the siren of, he's got to be doing this, or what? You know, what does that look like next? Is he a kid that will just always be delayed, not be able to catch up? And I can remember as a mom feeling like, I've got to fix this. And how many minutes a day can I spend trying to help him do this? And I can remember giving it my best shot. I've got a master's degree in this. I should be really a qualified parent in helping this kid make up the gap. And it was not happening. And just feeling like I'm paralyzed here and not being able to help him, make him grow, make him develop. And I think there's that place for all of us where you're doing the best you can, but it's just the hand of God upon her that helps her grow and develop. You did all the right things.
Yes.
But I think we as humans, we like the formula on, if you just give me the things to do, then I'll get this outcome. And you had no promise of that.
I didn't.
You're doing the best you can for your kid, but you had there's no guarantee that. I don't think you were expecting her to come off the spectrum. You're just expecting her to hopefully be able to communicate with you.
I just wanted her to communicate.
Yeah.
That's it. I wanted her to tell me when she was hungry. That was really hard. Especially when she would get sick. I'm like, I remember I remember like I was in a group on Facebook and I was like, one day I was like, I just need to say this. It's like, it's so hard having a baby sick, a toddler sick, but it's so much harder when they can't tell you what's wrong with them. And I just remember like bawling my eyes out, because it's like you feel helpless. And yeah, I think in those times, I mean, we can do what we can do, and then God has to do the rest. Because like I said, it's from what I was told, there's not very many kids that fall off of the spectrum. And it's just, we were fortunate in that, it wasn't a severe case, and helping her grow. And then God did the rest. So
I wonder sometimes if we, and you and I talked about this when you shared the story with me a few years ago, you said, I'm hesitant to tell people about this because I don't want them to think that that I'm giving advice or this is the end all be all.
Yes.
Or I'm saying, if you do these things, you'll get this result. Because I think a lot of us struggle with that gap, sometimes even in our faith, where we've done the right thing and we're still sick. We followed the path, or we prayed for healing and it didn't come. And so just even being able to share, saying, this is not the checklist of you do these things. This is not the
recipe.
No, there is no recipe.
Every child is different.
Yes. But I think that the power in sharing our stories is that it gets to bless other people. And I was even telling you this last week. I'm really slow. I'm a really slow learner. I'm really stubborn. I'm turning 50 later this year, and you would think I'd figured this out by now, but my life's really not about me.
Yeah.
And my victories, my sufferings, my setbacks are really just to introduce more of God to me. And if I experience more of Him in those things, great. But if I share those details with you or the next person, then maybe that blesses you to know more of Him as well.
Absolutely, yes.
So the power in the story is not holding it to yourself and saying, I've had this amazing miracle that this child is well, but in being able to say, God gets the glory in that.
And He does, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not, there is no recipe. It's just, that's her story. That was our story together.
And I think that this is a story that's so beautiful that it becomes part of the Campbell legacy. And it's a story that she's not old enough to even understand her story. She's 6.
No.
But at a time that she can, or maybe she becomes a mom one day, and you get to share it at a moment that really becomes powerful for her. And then it becomes a story that blesses generations. Because it's not about figuring out God or what He can do or will do in a moment. It's just about honoring the wonder and the mystery of it, and continuing to ask. So
yeah,
I just appreciate you being willing to share it today.
Well, thank you. And, one thing, if there is somebody listening and they are struggling, I want to just say one thing that really helped me back away from the ledge, I guess, if you will. Is that it's not a prison sentence. Like, it's not a taboo word, and it is an early intervention is the best.
Was a big blessing, was a big key.
It was very, yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, sorry.
No, you're good.
I just want to add that one last thing.
I love it. Thanks for doing this with me. Thank you, friends. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Share your stories with others and go out and rock the Casbah.